Hey, it's Friday night, and welcome to the Fancaste, episode 43. I'm your host, the lifting nerd, Brainmuffin. Driving out in the hot 105 temperatures of the deserts in California, Mr. Erik Ward.
Hello, I just want to say I'm bald and I'm beautiful. Don't hate me.
And no Chipotle tonight.
No Chipotle.
And on the opposite end of the country, you love them, you hate them, but you can't ignore them. Liquid Metal Pro.
I'm Pickle Spick.
Pickle Spick. All right, we had some great conversations off air. Maybe we'll put that at the end or something like that. You never know. So, gentlemen, what's on your minds?
I just want to say, because I haven't been on the show in a while, I just want to put it out there that I still am in love with Liam McAdoo.
That's not news.
We've come to expect nothing less.
I mean, to be fair to Eric, I understand why he loves Liam McAdoo, and not for nothing. If there was a possibility to, damn it, what was that play where the guy kills where the uncle, where the guy kills the his brother and marries his wife, then a nephew. It was something like, what is it, Hamlet? I think it is. Yeah, I'd do that, Eric. I'd kill Eric and I marry Liam McAdoo. And Eric left, apparently.
Oh, California must have got him. Let's see if I'll call him right back. See if that works, and or if he messages us via Facebook. Yeah, it's been a very interesting couple of weeks. Jeff's been producing a lot of videos. I know he's going to be on another podcast soon. But just remember, folks, we had Jeff as a guest first.
That is true.
And as I was reminding people yesterday during the live stream, Kendo got his start here. So Kendo went from, it was he and I at first, and we brought in LMP. And once we could get everything figured out, we've had other people. We've had Oggs for President. We've had Eddie Cantillo was on here. We had Reality's Frank. It seems like we had
Lost to Another Reality.
Another person on here too, every once in a while.
I think we had Justin Beck one time.
Yes, Justin Beck. We had him on before he was on the big show. And then I think he was back on this one. It was like, yeah, it's kind of, this is a little show. So anyway, I'm going to send a message to Eric.
So I think the point Labe is trying to make, ladies and gentlemen, is that we've had multiple fans on the show from the actual show. So we've opened the door numerous times. If anybody is interested, just to hit us up and, have some discussion going. That's really the only thing we're asking for, right?
Right. We've done several things. We had, it's out there. It's on my channel though. We had Christopher Littleton on. He and I as a test run. I haven't seen him in a long time. So Eric, we're kind of talking about some of our old guests. We had Jeff. We also had Nick on here.
Yeah.
I thought we had Dan one night. He may have been on with someone else. Kendall
Loudy.
Yeah, we've had Loudy. I've been trying to get him back on, but he's just too busy with like real life and stuff. Kendo and I drunk called Nick one night after that was for the Frankenthug. I guess that was a GoFundMe or Indiegogo. I guess it was Indiegogo. That ended up not getting enough. They needed $5,000 just to show it in the theater, and they didn't get enough. It was very sad. And then we had Richard Tanner on, the director and editor of a writer. I guess he wrote Frankenthug as well. So yeah. Anyway, it's just kind of strange. We were bigger than Ring Rust, which is no longer around. But it's so strange how this is associated with WCBS, and I've become associated through. I guess I got stuck in the molasses. I'm not exactly sure how it all happened. Yet this channel, my channel, don't grow worth crap. You know, it's like if 1% of the people on the main channel would subscribe to us, we'd be like
Yep.
600 or
We'd
something.
be
You know?
stars.
Yeah.
We'd be stars.
It's so bizarre. I mean, the one time Jeff, back in February, he said, "Hey, help my channel out," because I was about to get demonetized for the second time, and about 100 people came over, and that was it. And I needed, at the time, I think I was at 400 and something, and but I was over 1,000 a few years ago, and then it all went away. I lost a lot of subscribers in various purges, and then but I don't need to dwell on that. But I've been demonetized twice. Not because the content is so racy and so edgy and so out there. It's just, I guess it's so boring that no one wants to listen to it. I have the opposite problem, right? I'm not recognized enough. But yeah, it's pretty interesting. And this past year, I know I'm popping my peas. It's when you look at when people ask about stuff. It's like, this is like today. No one has noticed this. For the last several live streams that Jeff has done, I have repeatedly put in the chat the email address, and people still ask him the email address. So it's hilarious. It's like, are you even reading? And it's like every few minutes I've copied and pasted on my phone and on my computer and just pasted in. Wait a couple minutes, paste it again. Wait a couple minutes, paste it again. I did it this morning. Within 2 minutes, he was responding to someone's chat about, or what's your email address? And he gave it out. While he was giving it out, I pasted it back into my phone. It's like, really? The world-class BS at mail.com. So
it's a street chat thing, especially now with the fact they've gotten a lot more subscribers. What is it up to now at this point? Want to take a look at that real quick.
I think it's like 16,000. I think around
there. 67. Okay, here's the exact number as of right now. 67,946.
Yep.
So they're about to hit 68 soon.
Oh, I was way off. Jeez.
Yeah.
Yeah. Remember when that was an accurate number at one point?
Yeah. Well, early.
It's supposed to show you how big it got.
Early this year, I thought they started the year of like around 2,500, 3,000, something like that.
Dude, I don't know how Jeff does it. It's like encompassing his life. It's just like he does the Good Morning Pop Culture, which is really cool. He does videos throughout the week, and he does World Class Bullshitters on Thursday, World Class Bullshitters After Dark. And he's doing stuff on Saturday. I don't know how Jeff does it.
Well, I can tell you how he does it. It's two things.
Drugs?
No.
Drugs?
Well, for starters, he's almost 30. I mean, he's 30 in October, so he's got some good energy. He's passionate about it, right? He started the channel with. At first, it was kind of a neat thing, and they were just kind of having fun. But then once some traction started to happen, because if you look back. For a long time, they just did the weekly show and maybe an occasional video. And if you got a different video, it was things like Schlocktoberfest. He and Nick put together, the first year they put one for every day of October. Last year they just did a handful. You were watching, they had recordings of them watching various movies, commentaries. But really what kind of started it was when he started doing the toy videos last year.
Star Wars blew it up.
And then when the Last Jedi came out, because he was already doing it almost a year ago, he did some videos about the toy sales. And then it blew up because of the Last Jedi. But this is his full-time job, really. Now, and that's how he's able to do it. He's living with his mom. He has some bills, but it's not like he's got a mortgage and two kids, like Erik and I.
Yeah, he's single. I know that.
Right.
Obviously he has a lot of time to himself.
Right, and I don't know what kind of arrangement he has with his mother or anything like that. I don't know if he helps with, what. I don't know if they pay rent or if it's I don't know the background there, but that's basically the two main things. He's able to do it because it's his full-time job. Everybody else works.
That's true.
And of the four of them, Nick probably has his job is such that he can probably get time off a little bit easier than, Dion's I guess he has an office job, and then, Kendo's working at Home Depot. So I don't know if he's, swing shift or just whatever his hours are, change each week. But, but that's what Jeff, once he decided, and it's probably almost 2 years ago, is when he decided, you know what, let's see if we can make something out of this. It was just a fun thing at first, but, mid of, because it was just a couple of months after, because you guys remember, I know LMP remembers because we've talked about it, but last year, right, I don't know, a few weeks before, I've actually met some of them down in Atlanta for a strip club massacre when Jeff got really upset with Dustin. And a few months after that, it's like not long after the strip club massacre movie and all that, it's like they started to get a little more serious about other content. I think he and Nick started to, Nick finally had some time because for a couple months he was on and off because of the shooting schedule, and he was up, crazy hours editing and all that kind of stuff. And there was a shift that year. That was the first year they also, I guess they had already done Schlocktoberfest the year before. No, because this is 2 years ago, right? Or was this just last year and it just feels like 2 years ago?
No, it was 2 years ago. It was first Schlocktober.
Well, yeah, but
that's been so long.
That was Schlocktoberfest first, and then it was last year in March, March of last year is when the premiere of that movie came out, and then it was this year when February I was down in Atlanta for Days of the Dead. So, but he started to get a little bit more serious last year, and then about middle of the year is when he did his other videos. People were starting to kind of come and go. Lottie was there, he wasn't there, and then this past year, it was last year. It was last year. So that's when all those changes, when Dustin was going to take a more of a producer role, and then I guess he didn't do anything, and then eventually it settled on the four of them. Kendo got, for several weeks he was on this show and the main show, and then he basically just stopped this show, and then he was helping Jeff a lot, and then eventually he had to get a job. I guess that was really more this year he got a job, but anyway, so yeah, that video with the toys really started all this stuff, and then Last Jedi being as bad, no one could stomach it, and then it just kind of really exploded.
I agree with that.
Yeah. So, but what started that whole thing? It was he did multiple toy videos. Some people have done them. Other people have even referenced them. Many ways. Hey, I'm going to verify what WCBS is showing. Here's my local Walmart, and this stuff's got a half-inch of dust on it. So, but that's really the main thing is because I have some passion for my channel and for this station, but I have a full-time job, family obligations. It's really tough to do anywhere close to the content that he's able to, and I don't want to make it sound like he's got it easy to do that content, because it's not easy. He mentioned this morning when I was driving in on Good Morning Pop Culture that one of the videos he did, I forget what video it was, but it takes something like 5 or 6 times longer than doing a live stream for the main channel. Right, so when they do they get together, they chat for a few minutes, they do their live stream for an hour and a half or so, and then they do another half hour or so of stuff for the Patreon. So that he has to record. They all hang up from the Google Hangout. They get in onto Skype. They have to record. He has to render that. Now, granted, it's all audio on Patreon, but that takes another. So that's another 45 minutes minimum. So you're looking at, minimum 2.5 hours, I would say, just to do the show. But then to do a 20-minute video on Solo, let's say, can take 5-6 hours. And I understand that because, I've got several videos that I'm working on that I've recorded voice for, I've collected images, and it takes a long time to do them. It's, unless you're just going to be like Ethan and show something on your iPad and then complain the whole time. And I don't understand why do I get all this hate? This better not be fun. Why am I seeing
I was
panties?
wondering what the hell was going on just now,
I,
then I realized it.
I care about panties, but on women, I mean, I don't ever, guys, I don't ever search for panties, so don't tell me it's in my search history. I think they're just trolling me.
Relax,
Well,
Ethan.
Brian,
It's not like it's the weirdest thing in the world.
Yeah.
You got a really good point. Because, you do your reviews and your videos and stuff, and I've started my own channel, and I'm having fun doing my toy reviews. Lately I've been doing audio commentaries. I'm having fun with it. But it's like I wish I had more time, man. It's having a life and kids and a job is just it's overwhelming.
I mean, I've seen what essentially like what you guys are talking about. This is pretty much on point because, I mean, aside from the job that I do, and the job that I do just so nerve-wracking sometimes. Like when I just get home, all I want to do is just relax, sleep, maybe play a game or go to bed. I mean, I've given it a shot trying to make a few videos, and without like an actual computer to like edit thumbnails and stuff like that, it gets really difficult. Like I've been doing it just on my phone, and even that is kind of like draining at times. And all I ever do is just bitch and moan for like 30 minutes. What I usually do anyway. So.
The only thing I can think of, Brian, is maybe you could talk to Jeff maybe about maybe having me and you on, and maybe somebody else, maybe I don't know who else, maybe some fledgling channels that might want to get some publicity or something. I'm sure Jeff would be down for that. Trying to just give a little bit of some crumbs out.
Right.
I got an idea.
Share the subscriber love.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I think there's something we can do there. I mean, in part why I posted as the Fancast this past Tuesday. I did a super chat as Fancast just to get our name out there, and because neither Ethan or Jeremy can say my name properly. I don't want to be called Byron or Bryson again. But as soon as Jeff heard the Fancast, he knew who had posted that. He said, "Oh, that's Brian Lape," and because last week our title on purpose was building Uncle Ethan's Skybird's trebuchet. In part trying to do, it's a little bit of clickbait, I'll admit it, but it's also trying to keep it relevant. I mean, some of the stuff we talk about is a lot of the same things they talk about. So it's not like you're going to click on that and you're going to get an hour and a half of easy listening music or something. Although I can do my NPR voice. You're breaking up a lot.
The Illuminati got him.
He's going to drop again. Beep boop, beep boop.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is a common recurrence, nothing unusual.
Yeah, and I'm trying to use the Yeti again tonight. I've kind of changed the gain around and changed my settings, so hopefully it's not so dull. But yeah, I mean, part of even after I do this, I mean, my machine, I've got an 8-year-old iMac that I have to seriously consider upgrading because soon I'm not going to be able to upgrade the OS on it anymore. But it takes, even though I only do these at 720, it still takes a long time to render, even though the image for the most part is the same. And then, of course, the scrolling credits at the end is something I added recently just because I was bored. But what I'm going to have is the logo for tonight. My Photoshop skills suck, but I know what I want to do and concept it, but I got to find out how to do all those pieces. And who's messaging me? Yeah, that's much better.
Oh. He's fading in and out.
No. You're better like every other syllable. It came out as am I Now there your laugh is fine.
You should go back to the Uncle Ethan thing.
Yeah.
That actually sounded good.
I sound like Stephen Hawking.
Oh man, as long as you're not in a wheelchair like him, I think you're perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Is it clear now?
Man,
yes.
Okay. I'm just gonna say, I wish I had more time to not only do my own stuff, but I wish I had more time to actually do a full episode of the Fancaste. It's just so damn difficult for me with my work schedule. You know?
Well, and we don't, we don't record every Friday because sometimes all three of us are too busy to sneeze,
And I was saying about, about the High Council and Ethan. I'm like, I really like Ethan. I think he's funny and I enjoy the High Council, but to me, after a while, it just gets kind of redundant,
Right. Oh, I agree. That was, I think, one thing I liked about last week's High Council was when he and Dion weren't agreeing. And now, let me say, and we mentioned this last week on our show too, that there was a lot of dislike for Dion. But such is life. It's Jeff's decision who he's going to have on. But yeah, I think that's one of the things I'm going to approach, and maybe I'm going to have a captive audience with he and Nick on Horror Hound because I'm driving. So, Nick is driving up here.
A very special episode
Right.
of the Fancaste, ladies and gentlemen.
So that's on a Friday as well. So I don't know what we're going to do that I think it's the 24th or 25th of August. But that is something I want to kind of approach Jeff about because other people starting channels and they're asking, hey, and I think there's something that we can. This started as a show about the show, and in some ways we have our own voice on various things. But in some ways we talk about what they talk about, But I see us as we're not so.
What I really enjoy about it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, Brian, go ahead.
No.
No, I was just saying. I keep cutting out, so that's why I keep interrupting you. I don't mean to.
No, go ahead. Since you've got the connection problem, I can sit here and talk for the next 5 hours after you've gotten home and have to deal with your children. So go ahead.
And I can pretend to listen.
I think that you, myself, LMP, I think that we all kind of obviously have our own goals. I think we're all interested in our own way, different likes and dislikes. And hey, if I think it's going to through the name.
Just think happy thoughts. Happy thoughts making them come back.
In a lot of ways, because Jeff has so much time, I think Jeff is
Oh, now he's cutting out again. You're cutting out a lot now, man.
I actually stopped talking just so I could hear him to listen to him.
I was muted the whole so I could hear him. Oh, my God.
God, it's all. California really doesn't want you to be on this show sometimes.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I mean, Jeff even mentioned on the show yesterday that they're having a schedule. They had a business meeting, after things. So they're really having to schedule stuff a lot, and that's great because I think it's good. And yeah, Eric, I sent you a text message. Barely. Are you driving your normal route home, or are you driving a different way?
Probably circling the Chipotle parking lot right about now.
He's not going to Chipotle tonight. He's already, remember? We already talked about that.
How do you know he's not lying to us?
No.
He could be lying to us,
So Eric, I don't know if you can hear me, but it sounds like when you're really talking loudly, we're getting a couple syllables and that's it. We're getting the of better and that's it. So, and this is the other problem, Eric's on his phone trying not to break California law. So he's being hands-free, and then,
California law, what is that?
You can't use a cell phone. You have to use a hands-free. If you hold, even like Garmin or anything like that, if you hold a cell phone up and talking on it while driving, it's a $700 fine.
Haven't you heard those laws that target drivers who on their phones while they're driving? Those are sexist. You know who are the majority of the people that are caught doing it? They had to get rid of that law, probably. Who knows? Maybe it's in the books.
Well, where is it? Is it San Francisco that's outlawed straws?
Yes, they have outlaw straws.
You
Actually,
have to
no, but
ask
they have
for one.
outlawed. Yeah,
I think you
what
have
it
to
is
ask
that
for it.
exactly. If I'm a customer and I go to San Francisco now, as a waiter, you cannot offer me a straw. I have to ask you for the straw. Otherwise, I think it's like the first offense is a warning with a fine, and I think the second or third one I think is jail time.
Yeah, it's insane.
Like they went that far with this.
Yeah,
Like
based on nothing. It's some kid wrote a school report and claimed that 500 million straws are used in the United States every day, and it turns out his number is bogus. And it's this number that all these scallywags kept quoting. It's like 100. It's like 100 and some odd million a day are used. It's like 100. I don't know. It's 100, there's a video that debunks the whole thing. It's just stupid. But that's California. So if I ever go out there, if I go to San Francisco, I'm gonna order like 9 straws. And you know,
it's stupid because
but they got human
if I'm a
excrement.
customer,
They got human excrement. Here's San Francisco is trying to ban straws, yet they give out plastic needles to addicts.
yeah, they do.
And what's a needle? It's a stiff straw. So, you know, it's a tube. It's a plastic tube. And it's even worse because then it goes into some attic that's got God knows what, and then it's tossed on the ground. People step on them, you know, when they're stepping around all the poop on the ground. I just think it's funny that there is an app that you can download for your phone that people can report where they find piles of human poop on the sidewalk. That's just insane to me.
I'm gonna ignore what you just said because I can't believe that is real.
I mean, that's their solution. It's just insane. Yet, you know, city council's like, well, you know, we can't do anything about that, but we can ban straws.
City council's retarded. Again, we went back to this conversation a while back. I forgot what month it was. We're talking about the whole what thing was with the whole August Ames controversy, if we can call it controversy, like how they were, you know, what is it? It's no longer a felony if you knowingly infect someone with HIV or AIDS,
Right.
And which is a death sentence. There's no cure for that as of right now.
Right.
And they are banning straws because, again, like you said, somebody brought it to attention to someone that all these straws are probably in the ocean and poking turtles in the eye or something. I don't know. Listen, I like turtles and everything, but I don't believe straws are the problem here. What I believe is the problem is people taking this virtue signaling crap way too damn far and coming to the point where you're going to be offering jail time because you offer a straw. Like, it's who's to say that straw will even make it to the ocean? It'll probably make it to some landfill or make it to some other city. And I think they also said something along the lines. I don't remember many of the details. I think it was something else on the line, like I think the utensils too are going to be targeted or something like that. I heard. I don't know what's the validity of that. As far as the straws are concerned, that their thing is that they're going to try to use biodegradable straws, which we all know is just as stupid as the law. Just stick with the plastic straw. It's a straw. It was made for human convenience. It's not necessary, so there shouldn't be anything out there that punishes people for just offering it. And that's just good customer service. Like, we've gotten to a point now that it's, you know, well, the world will be all up in arms if a waitress, you know, doesn't get properly tipped by a conservative couple or something like that. But we can also jail waiters or waitresses for offering straws. Make up your damn mind. Like, it's a weird two-way street.
Sorry, man. I was listening to you talk and I was eating my supper.
I was actually trying to listen to Eric, but I don't think I can. I don't know what he was saying.
Can you guys hear me?
Now we can, yeah. It's good.
Yes.
Okay, I'll make this real clear, hopefully concise before I fucking break up again. I apologize, but what are you gonna do? I am in the middle of
Go ahead. I'm gonna mute and go.
I say, I don't know how much was broke up before. Again, I apologize for breaking up, but you know how it goes. I was just gonna say, you know, everybody, you know, for the most part, you know, on the show has a unique voice of their own. We agree on some things, we disagree on some other things, But I definitely think that, we all have, cool stuff that we do on our channels that, obviously some people will like, some people won't. That would be cool at some point if we could all kind of help each other to grow. That would be cool. I think in a lot of ways too that Jeff is growing beyond world class bullshitters as Jeff Hicks because of all the shit that he's doing. He does the show on Thursdays, but Jeff is really stepping up his game. I mean, I love his Good Morning Pop Culture show he does. Jeff's awesome, man. And let me tell you, man, sitting there and trying to talk to people, essentially you're talking to yourself, people are just commenting. That takes work. That's not easy. And to be interesting and be, humorous and be informative and all that, Jeff's doing a really good job of to not only bringing the world-class bullshitters brand up a notch, but he's creating his own brand, the Jeff Hicks brand.
Yeah.
So.
Oh yeah, I agree. I mean, listen to when he gets introduced on other channels. You have, especially Ethan. He says, Jeff of World Class Bullshitters, and Jeremy says something similar. And and I've actually had some fans and some former fans that contact me, ask, do you think he needs the other guys? So I'm like,
no. Not really.
For some things, no. For some things, yes. I mean, obviously the weekly podcast and some of the other gatherings.
Yeah, the show, yes.
And I wonder too, when does all the Star Wars growth stop? I mean, I'm not trying to rain on his parade, but at some point, people are going to be saying, I'm done with it. I don't want to talk about it anymore. But I'm sure the SJWs will come up with something else. That they've infected Marvel Comics. We'll probably start seeing it in the Marvel movies. DC is kind of teetering on the movie side. Some of it was there and some of it wasn't. I mean, Wonder Woman had some elements, like when she's talking to, what's his secretary's name? It's something like Candy or Candy Penny or I didn't, but you know who I mean,
Yeah.
What's and she says, well, what's a secretary do? Well, I get stuff for you, and I do what he says or whatever. She says, oh, where I come from, we call that slavery. That's kind of a little bit of it. I know some of it's a fish out of water stuff, and you're in, World War I England, and it's around the time the suffrage movement was starting to get moving in England, but wasn't fully aware of going. But that is kind of the door to that stuff, because, it's not like slavery at all. So it's a bit of a heavy hand there, but that's the, I don't know how much, I know Kendo for a while was helping with a lot of videos, and he was actually doing some research and stuff like that. And I don't know how much Nick does for him, but part of that I think is, we have a group on Facebook just for Horror Hound right now, the 5 of us. Jeff even said this morning he was going to be contacting me on that stuff. We've gone back and forth on things that we're starting to put together for that. And I think this is where the team side is starting to pull together because of the things that he wants to do. It's not too dissimilar, I think, to what Jeremy has with his Geeks and Gamers, where he has other people that, I don't know how much he pays them or at all, but there's a part of an organization underneath. And I think as a brand of the channel, whether it's just Jeff Hicks and the World Class Bullshitters, if that ends up ends up being or something, to keep that going, it's going to start taking more people. I know he said a couple times, several times, he's got a silk machine, silk screen machine to do T-shirts and stuff. And I like that he wants to have the quality control. I don't know if he starts getting T-shirt sales orders. I don't know when he has the time to do that. Unless it doesn't get significant. If it becomes a significant number, he's going to have to hire somebody to do it for him, or he's just going to have to outsource it back to a third party like he did before. See, I don't know how many people ordered T-shirts on the old store, but it actually came from his house. So he basically had to order them And my understanding, and this is what it seemed like, is when people ordered them and then he'd put them together and send them out. So Erik's at the store. That's good. So, you know, and I think it's a good thing if it gets to the point where he needs other people. So we're going to be doing things at Horror Hound. I'm going to be kind of a borderline out of my element a little bit because we're trying to do some interviews. I have, even on my own channel, I have some ideas for different types of interviews that I want to actually have been wanting to do for a long time. And I've actually chatted back and forth with Nick on it a little bit to see if we can get something set up. I don't have microphones and stuff like that. That's part of the problem. So a lot of this is to figure out what are we missing so when Celebration comes next year, it can be a little bit better. So, or a lot better. And so it's exciting to be kind of a part of that because I think at that point is when I'm going to get a bit more exposure on my own channel. I know when I was down there, that's what I got to get. I got to get cards too. When I was down in Atlanta for Days of the Dead in February, multiple people asked me if I had a card. I never thought about having a card with my social media stuff on it, like my or a Bitly address for my YouTube channel and for my Twitter stream and all that stuff. So,
I mean, you could start small with that. I mean, just get a small amount of cards. It's not like it's that expensive, but
I think it's interesting.
Just start simple with it, and then when you grow your brand,
right? Again, the World Class Bullshitter brand has always been Jeff. It's his. He started his idea, right? He's always hosted the show, right? Never had a guest host. Obviously, never, because that's never missed a. I don't think they've even missed recording every week. I don't think so, unless maybe early on. I know if you go back in the archives, you'll find some missing episodes that Jeff was just not happy enough with, and he yanked them down off of YouTube. So, so for people to think, well, does he need, it was always Jeff's driven idea, and people have contributed as they could and as he allowed the whole time. So, and this is why he had Brian Callahan on some early episodes, and then Jeff decided he didn't want, there's no animosity there. It's just the dynamic of the show changed enough. And then Joel moved away. He's been on every once in a blue moon since then. Loudy came in, what did he say? Like episode 20 something? I forget. But even in the early days, Loudy would be there for 3 or 4 in a row, and then he'd be missing for a couple weeks. And so for, every week you never, Dion, and once Nick could get in and wasn't involved with filming, he was pretty consistent too. So I'd say Jeff, obviously the most consistent, Dion and Nick probably the next. And then the rest of the guys just kind of came and, they never took it as seriously as Jeff wanted to take it, I don't think.
Well, here's the thing. And, this is something that I've kind of learned a little bit from my last couple jobs, like always, every job I've been at, I've always kind of like took some lesson from it, like some understanding of how business works. And one of the things with business, but there are rare instances, like with businesses, that if you take, like, let's say a break, even so much as a day, you could potentially hurt your bottom line. Now, bottom line can mean different things. Can mean profits, can mean viewership, can mean subscribers, whatever your end goal is, right? Obviously, with something like, WCBS, obviously, there's potential to make money off of it. As long as it's, I'm not saying that they wouldn't do anything illegitimate, but as long as legit, honest work, whatever, by all means, right? I'm more pro-capitalist in that regard. Like, just if you want to make money, start your own business, fine. Just go about it the right ways, take the right protocols. And if you have the passion for it, why not? I've softened a little bit on the whole YouTube debate. I used to have more of an opposite view of it a while back. I've kind of softened on that a lot. And with Jeff, it's, like you said, it's very noticeable how not only he takes this very, very serious, but this is basically like his baby. He takes care of it. He nourishes it. And, he's there for the audience at the same time. He's doing the thing that we've always said that we felt Lucas should have done. Like, still do your thing while simultaneously catering to the people who are going to keep your brand alive. Think of it like this. If he had not done things a certain way, would he even have the high? I mean, it doesn't seem that high compared to some other channels, but going on near 68,000 subscribers, that's a pretty big number. You and I could only dream to get a number that big at some point late. And he's done it. He's done it through hard work. And you said part of it is like how much of it is the Star Wars thing. I mean, I believe that's a big part of it. I mean, the channel itself isn't really marketed as a Star Wars channel, but let's face it, that's what most people know it as. He's been fairly consistent in his opinions and his views regarding loads of different topics. Aside from that, the show feels like a show, like they're all characters within the show. For example, how many times have I've ran with the joke numerous times about Jeff being Andre the Giant's long lost son. Dion has so many jokes that can be made about him. Kendall makes all the jokes. Nick's last standing Samoan. So you see that they're a brand, but not only are they a brand, there's more like a show of characters, people that you care for, people for the audience to root for.
Yeah. Well, you know, one of the tweets I put out today was all of the things that I could remember that have been called by Jeff as a title. You know, for a long time they would always say Brian Lape, and they still do. They've even told me, you know, that's the way I introduced myself when I met him down in Atlanta last year. I'm always Brian Lape. So I put that as a tag. I had Old Man. I had Official Timekeeper, which was the title I had.
Yeah, I remember that one.
Last year. Good. Right. Well, my old job and the job I had after that, I could do it for a few weeks, and then it got to be too difficult. And now with the live stream, it's just about impossible because they don't talk about. They jump all over the place constantly. And even though they jumped a fair amount before, there would usually be a stream of consciousness of, okay, here's like a chapter set heading if you want. They're going to talk about, you know, some movie, let's say, you know, latest. They just all went and saw Marvel, or they saw information about the new DC movie or whatever. And they would talk. They might jump around and kind of get sidetracked a little bit, but they would get back to that topic. But now with the super chats, if they do that, they get behind on the super chats, and then for the next 20 minutes, it's just this random stream, you know, of questions, and they go off on 18 tangents, and that's really difficult. But my old job, because I really had very little to do, I did that because someone put that in more than once as a comment. Because remember, they used to actually read the comments too. From the previous week's videos, and I was like, you know, that sounds like a good idea because it actually would help, because we were also talking more about their show. I mean, this is all we've been talking about now for 40 minutes practically, is the show but not the particular topics, and it helped preparing for this show. Right, well, it helped preparing for this show, but I was listening to it for the once. I didn't listen to it. Now it's live stream. Sometimes I catch it, sometimes I don't, but it jumps all over the place too much. And now she wants to. Apparently, Eric's got a new directive from his wife saying, "Yeah, you need to go to Chipotle." So,
do you see what I was telling you?
Yes.
Not a moment ago.
Yeah, I know you were correct.
There you go.
And you know,
vindicated.
I get it, but but that's, you know, and I don't remember who even made that asked the question, because I'm kind of like, well, you see a need here? Why don't you start filling it? And I mean, I did, because it helped me prepare for this show, which was something I didn't know until after I did it. It's like, oh, wait a minute, because now I know all the things they talked about, when they talked about it. I can skip to anything. I can pull references out. Now, since I stopped doing that, this show has kind of meandered off in its own thing. But then there's also been, now we have the High Council. We can talk about Cecil for half an hour when we want. We can talk about, you know, Uncle Ethan and his toe thumbs and building a trebuchet. I mean, there's all kinds of other stuff that we can talk about that's relevant to the show itself. And also now more patrons are asking for, you know, various things, and I didn't start it, but I kind of opened the floodgates, because there was someone else who did a watch party with them. I forget who. And then I said, Jeff, because I asked about doing one, and I said, you know, well, why don't we wrap it around my birthday? Now, somehow over the 4 or 5 weeks from when we set the date till it got there, my birthday moved 2 weeks, because I told him, I said, well, our birthday's on the 28th, but that was like a Wednesday or something, and I knew that my family was going to want to do something that Friday or Saturday, so I didn't want to mess with that. But 2 weeks before then, on the Friday of Father's Day I knew the Cincinnati Beer Fest. I was like, why don't we do it? And I'll be blitzed off my ass, and we'll just do it, and we'll go from there. So, because I had already made arrangements. My wife was going to pick me up. I didn't have to drive home or deal with my dad, who's had to take my brother and other people home first. So it's sad. He drops me off last, and I live the closest, but closest to Jungle Jim's, not to his house. But well, actually, he drops my brother off last. But anyway, so I like the different ways it's going, and it'll be interesting to see at what point does he have to start delegating some things too. But because I think it's very telling when he said, I don't remember. Yeah, we said it on this morning's Good Morning Pop Culture that they had to have a business meeting, and I was like, wow, that's showing that it's not only is he taking it serious, which I knew for quite a while, but there's some serious growth potential. I mean, they're knocking on 68,000. They're really close to 70,000. I really think after Horror Hound, there's probably going to be a bit more of a spike, and because of the people that will interact with there, and then, you know, they may still make 100,000 by the end of the year, and then we'll see what happens at Celebration next year. That'll be very interesting. But it's an interesting time because you have the large YouTube channels with 1 million, 10 million. You know, you still have PewDiePie and his, I don't remember how many millions, 15 million or whatever insane number of subscribers he has. But it really feels like it's somewhat of a return to the frontier days of YouTube. It's just now it's harder to get those numbers, right? If you were early on in YouTube, you got a lot of people fairly quickly. And now it's like, I think as long as YouTube doesn't censor it too much, it feels to me that the voices that at least the videos and stuff I come across are a bit more diverse than they used to be. And it's people like myself and Erik who, you know, this is a part-time thing we're really putting. I mean, Stephanie, you know, her channel's growing decently, and you know, she puts out a lot of similar videos on different topics, and then Jeff's even picked up on some of her videos and then talked about the stuff that she was bringing up. So the community, I think, is getting larger as far as content providers. At least it feels that way to me, you know. But you know, who knows? Maybe for all I know, it's the same number of people on YouTube. It's just a bunch of them have also dropped off. I don't know. But it seems
that
right. It seems to me though that my suggested videos, it's like it used to be just a handful, because I don't subscribe to many channels at all, and it used to just be a handful, and now it's like a couple of the ones I'm subscribed to and like 50 other channels I've never heard of. You know, no matter what video I'm watching. So if I watch something, or Ancient Architects video, or this other guy who I do subscribe to, his name I never remember. I think his name's Matt. Talk about, you know, alternate history and stuff like that. I'll have all these suggested videos, and like it used to be like the first 8 or 9 was all the same channel, and now it's not so much anymore. And it's not like they're not relevant to what I'm watching. It's not, because it used to be too, I would get a bunch of crap stuff I would never ever watch, you know. So anyway, but I think it's exciting, and we'll see what happens even with this channel. I mean, I guess part of it too, if this channel had to supply us money, we might be pounding a little bit differently. I don't know. I mean, this channel, I don't know if it'll ever be monetized, but I know we have 60 some odd subscribers or something, that it's been stuck for like months.
67.
Yeah, I think it's been the same for months, if I remember correctly.
Oh, you know, it's not like we don't have a passion for what we do. The thing is, like you and Erik were bringing up earlier, and I mean, I really couldn't add anything else to it, which is why pretty much I kind of remained silent at that point, and only saying it now is because let's look at this realistically speaking. You know, in Jeff's situation, I don't really know too much about like what his current situation is, like work-wise and stuff like that. I know from what I know from the show, like whatever he comments on, you know, and whatever he's honest with the fans about. Again, I don't know if there's more to it. Maybe he does this one more time. As far as I'm willing to believe what you said, it's a full-time thing to him. You and I and Erik, as much as we would love to something like this if this was our passion or we felt passionate about what we do. For example, like you with the beer reviews, him reviewing topics that he likes, mostly Star Wars related stuff. I mean, I watched a couple of his videos. That's not to say I can't watch all of them because, no offense, Eric, I don't say your videos are poor or anything, but there's just so much content out there, and after a while, it's like, okay, I want to listen to something different. So, I'm pretty sure that even Jeff's kind of realized that, which is why, even though we do get the Star Wars related stuff, let's look at it. For example, he put out, what was it? I think it was the Good Morning Pop Culture this morning. And then afterwards, he had a short stream video about the merger, the Disney Fox merger. So even he knows that he's gotta put out more stuff out there other than just Star Wars stuff. Now it's just, it just so happens Disney owns Star Wars and the topic was, relevant. Even he knows, you have to put out more stuff out there. This is why we have, he puts out different videos about different topics. There was one that recently was talked about, was highly controversial, also highly suspect, and how people feel about that and that particular topic. I won't get into it too much. I think you know which video I'm referring to. Even he had some, I'm pretty sure he even might have had some concerns. He even brought up on that video. So it's trying to branch out, to be the entertainment channel that I'm pretty sure he always wanted it to be. And he is someone who is very dedicated to that. Not to say that you and Eric aren't dedicated, but you guys also have other priorities that you have to tend to.
Right.
Me, for example, I have my priorities. Like I said, I go to work. Work is where I make my money. I have pretty much a good thing going. I have other ambitions in life. And there's some other things I'm not entirely sure I would want to do in my life.
Right.
As far as making videos is concerned, the nature of the beast is very, it's not like when you go to work. You go to work, you do your job, you do what you have to do, clock in 8 amount of hours, 8 hours, right, whatever, and you're out of the day, you know what you're getting paid for. With this, there is no guarantee that the day after tomorrow, you still will have the same amount of subscribers, you will still have the same amount of viewership, you'll have even content to produce, especially when it's something related to entertainment. Imagine if tomorrow all was right with Star Wars. All the Star Wars channels will basically be in agreement about the same thing. It's almost like, okay, so what differentiates one Star Wars channel from another? And all of a sudden, they're going to have to find ways to increase viewership, get viewers' attention and everything. How many anti-SJW, anti-PC channels out there? And you notice that a lot of them seem to repeat, I won't say different talking points, but different subject matters. And then usually what differentiates them is the gimmick of the person of that particular channel. I'll give you an example of a few that I've really come to enjoy, and just to kind of give an idea what I'm getting at. For example, I'm pretty sure the fans know already about this channel. He's a very well-known YouTuber, Mr. Medicare. He does a lot of I won't say he does a lot of just SJW videos, but he does a lot of videos kind of of things that he likes. And it just so happens that a lot of them is about SJW stuff or people that engage in some terrible behaviors. And he kind of brings it out to the light, so to speak, to let the audience determine for themselves what conclusions they draw. But he has a very humorous kind of very out there with a sense of humor type of thing about these things. And he looks at it and pokes fun of it, mocks it. One of the things that he did that I really enjoyed while everybody else was talking. Remember when we were talking about the Randy Stairs thing about the kid that killed the 3 people with a shotgun?
Right.
And he was one of the worst shooters out there in history, literally that bad.
Right. He
was one of the people out there that was saying, hey, look, I'm just repeating what he said, we should be mocking people like this. And there were so many other people covering it. They were talking about how serious it was, the prayers going out to the family and everything. And it wasn't like he wasn't saying that either, but he went out of his way to say, hey, we should mock people like this. We shouldn't put them on a pedestal. Right. Stop trying to act like they're in power. And that differentiated him, especially when he went more in depth with it, whereas other channels just kind of picked up the story, gave their opinion, and called it a day.
Right. There's
There's another anti-W channel. I know some people might know about it, and amongst the fans. I don't know if you've heard of her. Her name's Aiden Paladin. I won't say that her videos aren't my taste. The thing is that she does a lot of like analysis about a lot of these things, and she really gets into these topics. She really goes into it, and for like an entire hour, you just hear her analysis, and a lot of it has to do with science, political philosophy, and all that other stuff. And she makes it very clear where she stands in terms of the politics, and I can't help but agree with her and her lovely voice. But there are times when I'm like, okay, I'm not feeling this whole science, philosophical, psychological analysis. Let me go get something. Let me find something that is similar to this, but is a little bit of a different take. And that's probably when I would deviate to the channel previously mentioned. So, but a lot of these channels, what they have in common is that this is what they mostly dedicated themselves to. So, I know I've been hammering the same point over and over for like last couple minutes.
I think we both been hammering the same point.
Hey, like can you guys hear me now?
Yeah, go ahead, man.
Look,
give us something else to talk about, man. We're getting hung up on.
It's bad enough I had to stand in fucking line for almost 30 minutes to get some medication at the fucking drugstore with some fat guy trying to talk to me who smells like a sack of shit. Now I got to go to fucking Chipotle, man. Dude, I'm gonna create my own anti-Chipotle channel. God.
Do it, dude. Do the anti-Chipotle channel,
dude. I don't hate the food. I don't need it every week of my life.
Oh my God, are you gonna have your MegTown moment? Please give us a MegTown moment. Hey, this channel has been suffering the last hour. Hey, we need a MegTown moment.
Dude, I'm hoping to walk in and hear some mariachi music again. I always think of you when I hear that shit.
Another man saying that he thinks about me. I don't know how to feel about that.
No, that's the second time. Same man is saying it.
I think of you fondly. Not as in fondling, but fondly.
Okay, I heard fondling.
Right.
I never heard.
Fond, Fondly. Fondly.
That's still a lot of fondling.
So is there anything okay, well, there's something we could talk about. The what's her name who's getting her old tweets? Sarah Silverman, or is it Sarah?
Oh yeah,
I don't like her
anyway. A little bit.
She's not funny.
No.
That shit, dude. That shit is not in good humor.
Oh no.
It's not funny.
I remember when she did all that. I was like saying, this isn't. It's so. I had a woman tell me this years ago. Probably over 20 years ago, that she didn't find most female comedians funny, and because I forget exactly how she put it, but it's along the lines of they'll be funny for a little while and then it'll get old, and it's amazing how often that's happened where I've like, oh, this girl's funny, and then like 2 years later I'm hearing the exact same jokes or different versions of the same jokes, and they're not coming across. And I don't know if it's because there's so few women who go into comedy, because there's plenty of male comics I don't find funny either, but there's so many more. It feels like it's not as much, but I don't know. It might be the similar percentages. There's only 2% or opposite percentage. I don't know.
Well, men and women just observe life very differently.
Right.
And men, for the most part, and I'm not saying this to be sexist, but it's just true. Most men have a better sense of humor. They look at life from a more, not so much a comical aspect, but they look at life a little more lighthearted, where women are just so pent up and defensive, and just women are just different creatures.
Yeah.
Let's look at it like this. Men, like, how many times have you seen either in some TV show or in some movie or something, like if a man is depressed or suicidal, even, it's humorous. Like, it's almost to the point that it's absurd and we laugh about it, even though we know it's pretty serious. And yet, if a female, I should have said female, I should have said woman, but I probably pissed off people for saying that. But if a woman does it, even if it's meant to be taken as a joke, it doesn't feel that way. It almost feels like, oh shit, she, like, I think she's serious. Like, maybe we should like do something to help her out. It just doesn't have the same effect. I guess would be the right way of saying it.
The thing with her is, man, It doesn't matter if it's her or these other comedians that have made references to, molestation and dude, it's like that shit is never funny. It's not. There's some things in this life you have to draw a line and say, you know what? You don't fucking cross it. That shit you don't cross. You don't joke about it. You don't make reference to it. It's not a fucking humorous subject. At least in my opinion. I don't find it funny at all.
I mean, I would like to agree with you 100%. The problem is that, I mean, I'm more, like I said, I'm a free speech advocate, and I feel like the only things that should never be said are outright threats or call to violence to anybody.
Oh, yeah.
Other than that.
I agree with you. You can say whatever you want, but be prepared to deal with the fucking ramifications of what you say.
Oh, no, definitely. That's the point.
You start making remarks about, how if you're going to be a molester, you got to be dedicated or whatever she said. It's like, lady, there are kids that actually are being molested right as we speak. It's not fucking funny.
It's kind of made things a lot more uncomfortable now. But
and I hope all these, and I really hope all these asshole liberals that want to fucking take the high moral ground all the time. I hope these assholes really start suffering the same career fates as people that, in the conservative media, like Bill O'Reilly. He took a big hit. I'm glad that James Gunn got his ass fired. You know what, dude? You shouldn't be tweeting that shit. It's not fucking funny.
Tell us how you really feel.
You work for a major corporation. You got to keep your mouth shut. I mean, did you actually read the tweets? No, seriously, LMP, did you happen to actually look at the old tweets that James Gunn put out? Can you believe that? Can you believe a grown man would tweet that shit in public? It's like, really? What the fuck?
To prove your point, I mean, to add more to your point, what I don't understand and what really bothers me about all this is that, okay, like, listen, I'm on a level here with people. Like, I know we all remember, I won't say fondly, but we all remember pretty well what happened with, like, Michael Jackson and the accusations and everything.
Yeah.
There were people there went two sides of the fence about this. You either believe he did it, or you came to his defense.
And,
I mean, a lot of people.
And by the way, LMP, I don't mean to interrupt you, but just to interject really quick.
Yeah.
Those ramifications, or not ramifications, but those claims against him, that shit killed his career in the United States. Fucking killed it. It killed it.
It did. No, you're right, and that's the thing. Going back to the subject at hand, not only did they. Well, I mean, if watch the video from Razor Fist, it's called Michael Jackson Mythos. He actually goes a little more into detail, who he holds responsible for the death of Michael Jackson's career, and he actually makes a really good point about it. It's a very interesting analysis, not only of Michael Jackson's retrospect, like his music and everything, and he talks about it very favorably. But he also goes into detail, like why he feels, he got not only ostracized by the media the way he did, but also why there was like no damage control for him. Sony is a pretty messed up company. Less said about Sony, the better.
And but he made the key mistake. He fucking settled. Yeah. He should have never settled. If that was me and my reputation, fuck that. I wouldn't have settled. No way, man.
Sounds like Eric's
makes you look guilty. God, don't mind me.
Yeah.
Dude, I just want to go home. Dude, I just want to go home and take a fucking shower. It's 102 degrees out right now. I gotta go to fucking Chipotle and this.
You know what you should do, Eric? You should pick up yourself a nice Spanish chick that you always keep talking about in California, and be like, "Hey, you want to go to my place for a shower?"
Dude, I don't want any chick. I just want to go home and be left alone.
Yeah. I can understand that. I can definitely understand that.
So I'm gonna put you guys on mute, and I'll chime in here if you wish me luck.
We'll try and talk about some other topic. I mean, we haven't even.
I'm still becoming Al Bundy, dude.
But Al Bundy's a man, and he called it like it was. I mean, just to hammer my point in a little more, it's just that there are going to be people that are going to come to the defense of anybody in these type of situations. That's to be expected. That was like the comparison I was trying to make here. Now, with the case of Michael, we obviously, to this very day, still don't know what the truth is. If the little boy made it up or not, the accusations were real. Yeah. I mean, there was that stuff that supposedly came out about him years later after the fact, but the timing of it is so suspect that one can only almost say, all right, it's bullshit. Now, I don't want to say produce the evidence because I don't want to see that evidence. But again, suspect of the timing. The thing here that bothers me and I find a little disturbing is, sorry to cut you off, but about the whole James Gunn thing, and even the Sarah Silverman to a degree, is that we have people who think it's okay to say these things. And I don't mean okay as in the sense of, okay, like, like how I believe it's okay, like in the sense that it's free speech, or feel free to say whatever you want, you live with the consequences about that. But okay in the sense as if it's your God-given right to say it. I don't know if you understand the difference I'm trying to point out here.
No, I think I do. It's not. I mean, this is one of the things about free speech. Is it okay to yell fire in a crowded movie house thing? To me, there's a consequence. You will self-censor if you believe. If you are a moral, my view, if you're a moral person, you'll self-censor if you believe you're going to cause damage to others that you don't want to pay. Right? So if you were to yell something in a crowd, whether it's a movie house or not, and the dogs are starting to get rambunctious here, so this is why we shouldn't have wasted a half an hour to start. We got to start right away. I had just let the dogs out. We had 90 minutes before they start goofing around. And you cause damage to someone gets trampled, someone gets injured, killed, whatever, you're going to be paying for that. It's not, and I'm talking about real damage. Emotional damage is one of those things that's very difficult to, because some people fake it. And there is such a thing. I don't want to belittle that. But this is why people don't say certain words now, because it can end their careers. You have the guy who started Papa John's is suing. He got dismissed. I didn't realize this. I saw an article this morning where he's suing his old company for records on certain things because he felt like he was dissed. Apparently used some kind of racial slur in something where he didn't realize he was on a hot mic or something. I mean, it wasn't even like, on national television or anything crazy. But now it's so bad that if you say the wrong thing once, you are screwed. And even if it's, I don't care if it, let's say it's a joke in poor taste. It's, it is a fine line. How do you say, well, you can't make fun of pedophilia or molesting children, but you can make fun of people who are black or green or purple or whatever? Where does that fine line go? And that's my biggest problem with any governmental regulation on speech, because it's a slippery slope. And once you start going, it just gets out of control. But I forget which founding father it was. I thought it was Madison, I think it was Madison or Adams. I don't know. It doesn't matter. One of the early presidents said that our Constitution was for a moral people. And the fact that we have no moral background, and I'm not talking religious, I'm just talking about, you can look at things like the 10 Commandments on the stuff that is for dealing with people. There's a group of commandments dealing with man's relationship with God. The others are man's relationship with man. Just take that part itself, okay? And you can decide whether or not they can be defined by human experience or not. I'm not Limbaugh, so I'm not going to tell you how to think. But just take that part. Or, Christ's message about loving your neighbor, or Gandhi's message about helping others and being kind to one another. Gandhi kicked out, he ended British rule essentially in India through nonviolent means, okay? So that concept, and if people were living that way first, then things like free speech hold. But because they don't live that way, we start to get more and more government control, and it's in my opinion, it's completely out of whack. I mean, it's going to be like it's if it doesn't stop, it's going to literally get to the point where you look at someone you're a coworker, especially if it's a female, and since we're all men, let's say there's a woman that asks, "Hey, how do you like my hair?" And you look at it and you really don't like it, and you just kind of say, "Well, yeah, I mean, it's let's say, well, I don't like. Let's say they get their hair dyed. I don't like red hair on you. Let's just say that's all you say. Well, it's going to get to the point where that's going to get you fired by the afternoon.
Yeah,
I mean that's where we're headed.
No, I agree.
And
it's sad because
unless you're in some protected minority, and and then that's also getting divided, and they're getting what's really frustrating is they're not seeing that they're being pitted against one another. It's like divide and conquer, divide and control, same idea. But the topic at hand, getting back to the topic at hand, since I've gotten us way off subject, that fun.
No, but
well, see, the thing is certain groups literally can't speak for themselves. Children are not going to be able to defend themselves like an adult would. And,
no, they're not. It's a very, oh God, I was about to use the wrong terms here. I was about to say touchy subject, and then I realized what we're talking about.
Well, it is a sensitive subject, and it's a raw nerve because people will say, well, black people couldn't defend themselves.
Sensitive subject, there's no way we can say this without not sounding wrong.
It is.
We all know what you mean, LMP.
Yeah, but it is a very sensitive. But again, it gets to okay. Well, how do you define who can't defend themselves? I mean, part of the problem is with the postmodern deconstructionism. You just keep taking that to the nth degree, and this is why we have the cultural Marxists go in the direction they are, because this postmodern nonsense started 25, 30 years ago, and now this is the third generation that's coming up with these ideas. Now they're not just introduced to them. That's the world. Well, if you keep pushing that deconstruction, it just gets worse and worse and worse. Right? It's that pendulum swinging, and what's going to happen is at some point the pendulum's going to stop, and it's going to swing. And unfortunately, it doesn't stop in the middle. It goes all the way back the other way, and we get some. And not people want to say left and right. That's baloney. It's all authoritarianism. Is it Thomas Sowell that has the quote something like when the boot of oppressionism is on your throat, it doesn't matter if it's a left or right. I don't know if you've seen that. I think it's Thomas Sowell, but the point's well taken. If the boot of government's on your throat, I don't care if they're fascist, communist. I don't care what ist they are. The boot is still on your throat.
The boot is on your throat. It doesn't matter who it is. They're still applying the same pressure.
Right. But get back to, if you don't start with a moral, strong governments are for people who I won't say immoral people, but more or less people. And that's where we're more and more finding ourselves.
Hey, Brian, you remember back in the day when there was a clear-cut idea of what good was and what bad was, and there wasn't much of a middle ground?
Oh yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Today. That's exactly what I'm talking about. That's in the 80s. That was considered old-fashioned. They made fun of that on television in the 80s, and fun of it in movies. And now look where we are.
I mean, just look at the way we talk to each other. Look how every other guy calls another guy a bitch. It's like, really? It's like, I don't let people call me a bitch. It's like, hey, fuck you, dude. You don't fucking talk to me like that. I'm not a fucking bitch.
Right.
It's not fucking funny, Or, I just...
Right, in particular when it's not a friend who knows you, right?
Yeah. It's like, hey, what's up, bitch? It's like, who the fuck do you think you're talking to?
Right.
Man? I mean, just look how people talk to each other. Like, when people get in arguments now, people don't just have not so much a heated argument, but people just don't agree to disagree. People just they lose their minds. It's like, fuck you, you fucking cocksucker, fuck you, hope you fucking die. And it's like, really? It's like, what? We can't have a disagreement? You gotta lose your fucking mind? It's like, it's just civil discourse is just right out the window, man. Nobody has any. Yeah, dude, just nobody has any respect for anybody anymore, man.
And I think you hit the nail on the head. That's the big one right there.
I really try hard in my life, because it's the way I was raised, is I try to treat everybody equal. I try to be respectful to everybody, even though I have
God
And
bless.
when
Every
he's
time.
Gonna say, every time he's on a roll, like, and he's getting somewhere good, it just happens like clockwork.
Eric, repeat your last 3
anyways.
sentences.
Is it better now?
Yes.
No, I'm the same, man. You know, I try to live my life by because it's the way I was raised. I'm not perfect. I can be an asshole, but I try to treat everybody.
I'm pretty sure he meant to say he treats everybody with respect.
Yeah. We'll finish that point for you, man. You keep cutting out.
I didn't mean to, but I mean, at some point he was going to say it anyways.
Yeah. So how far are you from home?
I just pull in the driveway.
All right. Well, we've been
So
going
he's
for
gonna
an hour and 15 minutes, so I'm
Oh,
keen to start
I just
wrapping
wanna
this up.
I just want to say, as I'm on my way out here, everybody, just be good to each other. Be nice to each
Yes.
other. Treat people with respect, even if you don't agree with them. As long as they're not a fucking, child rapist or a fucking rapist or.
Well, that would
you
not
know.
that would be not treating people with respect if you're doing that. As they said in the Bob
Yes.
and Tom show, Bill and Ted's excellent. Be excellent to each other.
Yes, unless you're dealing with a complete asshole, a complete scum of society, man. Treat people nice, and you'll get it back.
Yeah.
It
Be the
might
change
sound
you wanna
naive to
see.
say that. Yeah, it might, peace and love, dude. It might sound corny and naive to say that, man, but
Nope.
you
It
know,
works.
Trying to get into hippie territory there.
Yeah.
hey, hippies had fun, dude. They got stoned and got laid.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, how did that work out for them long term?
Well, they're
Yeah, well,
running
they
things
did-
now.
well,
What
they-
do you mean? How did it
well,
work out? They're in
They did
charge.
too,
I know.
and they also did too many drugs.
Yeah. They had
That's
some
where
good
we're
ideas and they had some real crap ideas. And because they fried their brains, they couldn't figure out which ones were crap. Because the ideas of community love and that type of stuff was good. The concept of socialized everything is bad. Because you can't.
If you want to,
Go ahead.
go ahead.
Finish out,
I
Eric,
was just
since
gonna
you're
say-
home.
I was just going to say, if you want to look at the hippie generation that is now in control and look at how fucked up things are right now, I only would refer you to look at Nancy Pelosi, and you'll get all the answers you need right there.
Ugh. I didn't think we were going to get any more disgusting tonight.
Diane.
And on that note, I'm out, guys. Have a great night.
All right, man.
I'll talk to you later.
Talk to you later.
Please pray for me.
And watch Eric's channel. I'll put the link in the description. So
Thank you.
He's doing some
Also,
good
stop by
reviews
Chipotle.
of what is the crap? I just saw it.
I'm doing Daredevil,
Daredevil. That's
and
right.
I'm doing some movies here and there. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
All right. Catch
All
you
right,
later.
guys. Have a great night. I'll talk to you.
Night.
All right, man.
Bye.
All right. And yeah, the this is where, so many philosophies, people have this mixture of philosophies that are actually against one another and they don't realize it. So you have the free love movement, and these hippies believe in socialized everything or community property. But that only works if it's voluntary. When people don't give up their property voluntarily and then you have to force it, you're no longer treating each other with love and respect.
On top of that, if you go a step further, that really cannot work on a large scale. That really could only really be feasible and more manageable on a smaller scale. Because on a larger scale, remember.
Well, it can
You're not
work
gonna
on
be
a
able to-
large scale, but it has to be voluntary. And
See, that's the thing.
Most
You
people
can't
aren't
have a
going to.
million people.
Right.
You can't expect a million people to do that. Say like a couple hundred compared to a couple million. It's
right.
It's like this whole thing that people are trying to push that right now. Like that's how the government should be run according to them.
Yeah,
And
but
I
see,
said,
that's the
okay.
problem. The government can't do it. See, as soon as you involve an outside, like a government, you're no longer appreciating each other. You're forcing your ideas. As soon as I have to accept your idea of correct, or I cannot be a member of society, you're no longer dealing with love and respect. It's a now granted, being an anarcho-capitalist really I understand it's beyond pie in the sky, man, utopia idealism, okay? Because it's exactly based on I don't build my factory upstream from you because I don't have a right to pollute your water. Okay? That is very difficult to really do. I mean, the technology level it takes that I can build my factory, I can take some water out, I can do whatever it is I'm doing with it and clean it and put it back into the stream cleaner than when I took it out. That is a very modern invention. So think of how many, let's say I have a paper mill. I mean, how long have they been making something, what we would call paper or papyrus? I mean, all the way back to ancient Egypt, right? And it's messy and it's disgusting. And if I'm just a few thousand people on a big river, you may not even notice. But when it's a million people on that same river, you're going to notice. And
Exactly.
That's the my problem is I believe in self-organization, and I've seen it happen, and it can happen on large scales and it can happen on small scales. But as soon as one person believes only they can be in charge and they're going to enforce that by violence, which is what the government does, then it's no longer a voluntary organization. I've been a part of groups that have come together. We've recognized certain individuals with certain tasks and responsibilities. And once our mission was over, we dispersed. Now, did we miss each other? Yes, that fellowship and everything, we missed that. In some ways, we kind of carried some of that along. But if you're too tight, then that's when you start getting cliques. And that's not good either, because then you start being exclusive to people. So it is a very slippery, fine line. This is like, doing a high wire act on dental floss here. Okay. It can be done, but it's really difficult. So,
especially on the mint one.
Right. A mint one. I mean, obviously it has to have something, let's say something has tensile strength to hold you up, but that's essentially what a spider does. But, but I believe it's possible, and it's an ideal that because unfortunately it just takes, if one individual gets out of line and the rest of the individuals can correct that and then fade, the problem is once the power is given, people don't voluntarily give it up. This is why the government, no matter what you start with, continues to become more oppressive. You can start with a chieftain, and then eventually you end up with, some crazy emperor like Nero killing people because it's Tuesday afternoon. Right? The chieftain has he has the responsibility of the tribe on his shoulders, that everybody has what they need and that the tribe succeeds. And then, which is in many ways what we had in Central America when the Spanish showed up. The Inca? No, not the Inca.
The Incas. You're talking about South America, right?
Yeah, well, in Mexico, what was that?
Aztecs.
Was it the Aztecs?
Yeah, Mexico's Aztecs.
No, the Mayan, the Aztecs. I have to look at Brian Foster's video again, but there was what we call them is not actually what they were called. That was actually like the chieftain's name, and the chief. Yeah, I don't remember. I mean, it's a fine line because it's not the people who were doing the human sacrifices. It was somebody else, but that's what happens, right? In order to maintain control, you have to scare people in some fashion. So either you're doing it through a religious belief that's common, or you take a religious belief that's common and you introduce the scary, if you don't listen to me, God won't listen to your prayers or whatever. The Mayan it was the Mayan that was doing the human sacrifices in Mexico City, right? Where they're, pulling the hearts out of people's chests and tossing the bones down. But you get, and it doesn't have to be a religion. Now we have it with philosophy. Now where people are doing it, well, you don't believe in social justice. You must be a pighead, and you have to, we need to make sure we destroy you. And so we're going to find something we don't like about you, and that you've said, and you're going to be out of a job. And so now more and more people are self-censoring and walking on eggshells. And I'm not even getting into the things that people have done that are pretty gross and disgusting and maybe even illegal. But, this is where we are. And at some point it's going to swing. At some point there's going to be enough people who are sick of it, and they're going to want to change. and this pendulum's going to swing the other way. But fortunately, it doesn't tend to happen instantaneously. We'll have,
Well, I mean,
it'll be a revolt. We'll have more freedom. When the pendulum's in the middle, we'll have this much freedom, and then it'll start swinging back the other way. I mean, think about the American Revolution, right? You had all these grievances in the Declaration of Independence of what the British were doing. They were confiscating weapons. They were harboring soldiers in colonist homes without any kind of compensation. The king wasn't listening to the problems we were having. We were getting taxed. We had no representation. And then we throw all that off. It takes 8 years to throw all that off. Okay, this is not overnight. The Revolutionary War was not won. It wasn't. We declared independence on July 4th, 1776, and July 5th, 1776, the Constitution was signed. Although a lot of people seem to think that. And then there's somewhat chaos. We have more freedom. Well, citizens have more freedom, although citizens were fairly narrowly defined. Property owners, male property owners. And real property, not owners of slaves, actual like real estate. And it swings in, and then that's kind of when it's coming toward the middle, and more people were included eventually. Eventually, we get the emancipation of the black slaves in 1865, and the vote and all that, and then it just swings right on through and all the way. But as part of that build up to the middle, so that as opposed to at first it was expanding the ideas of what these things were, expanding the concept of citizen. Then we started to get this, we have to enforce this, especially in the South. All those bigoted assholes, they won't leave the blacks alone. And then it just gets worse and worse and worse. And then now we're where we are now. And I hope we're slowing down and the pendulum's going to start swinging back the other way. But my God, I wish it would just stop in the middle, where we all treat each other with love and respect, which means the government doesn't have to tell us to treat each other with love and respect, but will punish those who don't with true crimes, not a perceived grievance, and maybe we'll be a better society. I don't know. I didn't mean to get all mushy and philosophical there, but it's just like, golly day. But this is not something new. This is something. I mean, you go look at early Greek democracy. Right? When the whole town would turn out, decide to do something because no one person was in charge. And the whole town would say, yep, we're going to do that, or no, we're not going to do that. And all it takes is one person with a handful of ruffians saying, well, now I'm in charge. And you might be right. There might be a point where it's like it works to, each of these philosophies works to a certain level. And then as soon as there's one person too many, then the ball's rolling downhill the wrong way.
Exactly. It's the thing is, like, when I say that I don't feel it could ever work in a larger scale, I mean, that's not to say it can't work, and it probably the same thing can happen on a smaller scale, because you're going to have bad people all over the map. Doesn't matter how many people there are left. It's always about like what resources are available, what things certain people want, and how they wish to acquire them. So again, you have personalities out there. But when you're dealing, like, let's say, as opposed to 10 people who can come to an agreement, as opposed to 1 million people that can come to an agreement, it's a lot easier for 10 people to like be on the same page than it is for 1 million to be on the same page. It's one of the reasons why I don't feel it could work on that big a scale, because at some point in those million, especially if you're dealing, like, you're bringing about the multiculturalism, and the point that needs to be brought up is that always understand different cultures have different needs. And I don't mean necessarily different needs in terms of like food, water, anything like that, but different needs in terms of like what they need to sustain their culture. For example, God is going to come out so fucking racist, but let's say, for example, like, in order to preserve your culture, you're going to have to preserve certain things, like certain menus, certain languages, and everything like that. So what you're probably going to do is going to go out your way in order to preserve your culture. Like, let's say, for example, one concern that a lot of Spanish families have when they have children here in the United States is that the child is going to be Americanized, right? So one thing that they seem to hammer in, especially at a very young age, and believe me, it's happened with me, to an extent, I've kind of more or less figured out where I fit on this spectrum, and I'm happy where I'm at, is that the parents in Spanish owner will always hammer in the importance of their Spanish heritage. And despite the fact that if their children are born here by by law, they're natural born citizens, they're Americans. So, what's to say, they're born here in this country, what's not to say that they shouldn't have the right to enjoy American culture, whatever different people have different opinions on what that is. To me, it's pretty straightforward. It is. So you have families that are like, okay, well, no, I don't want my child to lose that. So now all of a sudden they're going to reach out to whatever communities they can reach to or wherever people they can reach to pass all these things. Like, well, listen, I don't want my child learning, forgetting about this, this, and this. So I want this to be taught in schools. And it always starts out small. It always probably starts out with good intentions. Like, hey, we're just trying to, preserve our culture and everything. And, people are going to relent. There are going to be people objecting to it. But it starts out small. And then it's like down the line, all of a sudden it's like, well, now in bigger numbers. All of a sudden now we have the numbers. You have to give us this. And that's usually how the ball seems to always work. It always starts out with a small number, and it always starts out with the best of intentions. But as the numbers seem to grow, there's always going to be people who are saying, well, guess what? Now our numbers are just as big, if not bigger than yours. Funny. I'm pretty sure a joke could be made about that. But our numbers are bigger, so our needs to be met first. And that's where I feel that whole notion of that once we get to a larger scale, I can't see it working, because at some point, like you brought up, we're going to have one person too many that's going to swing the pendulum a certain way. And I'm not talking about the pendulum swinging back and forth. I mean the pendulum that can swing in all directions. And then you're going to have other people, other groups that are going to say, well, guess what? Now we're the majority group. You were previously the majority group. They were previously the majority group. You now take a back seat. And it's like we're all getting at a point where we're all trying to, it's like crabs in a barrel. You're trying to see who climbs to the top. And again, it all starts out with good intentions. That's why I can't, as much as I would like to say, get rid of all these JWs, or some people even joke like exterminate them all. I really can't feel like that would be the right course of action if I was given the decision, because at the end of the day, some of them probably just did have good intentions, but they don't understand the error of their ways, the error of their viewpoints maybe, and maybe they don't see things a certain way like I do. So I can't really blame them. The best I can do at that point is like, listen, as long as you haven't hurt anybody and you haven't done anything to harm me, I can only like try to hammer a point into you and hope for the best. If that's the point you're lost, then I just got to let you be, and that's called tolerance.
Yeah. Well, let me kind of shoot off before you go too far. For several generations, there were people that came here and they kind of added their culture to the American identity, and that might mean an appreciation for their language wherever they came from and their cultures. But eventually, things did become Americanized, but it wasn't like it fully replaced where they came from. It got added into the mix, and so they had some of what they left, and they had some of this other stuff from other people and other cultures. This is why America was called the Great Melting Pot for a long time. And now English being the common language would be known, and they might forget their native tongue over couple generations, but in the latter half of the 20th century, we'll say, certain immigrant groups came into the country from various places that didn't want to do that. And that sounds like kind of what you're talking about from a Spanish side. The Chinese kind of sort of did that and kind of still do. I don't have a problem with people wanting to maintain their national identity. Where my draw the line is, if I have to change my local school for you to identify with that, that means you're forcing your culture on me. I don't have a choice.
Exactly.
You still have a choice to absorb as much or as little as my culture. Because I know people that homeschool because they want, for various reasons. Some are religious, some are cultural, some are other things. So they know, okay, the state says your kids have to learn this, and this. And maybe they have to take a test in English because that's the national language, but they don't necessarily have to be taught in that. And there are foreign language schools. There are schools, or there's a school around here somewhere that's all German. And there's a German heritage in Cincinnati. But if you come to Cincinnati, you don't have to learn German or even know how to spell Germany to enjoy Cincinnati. And that's the thing with I kind of wish my great-grandfather still taught, well, yeah, my great-grandfather did know German, but my grandfather didn't. So, but some of the family recipes and things that got handed down, guess what? They're Germanic, right? They came from the old country. And part of that identity is still there, but we don't just keep holding on to that, but we kind of blend in and mix. And it sounds similar. I think it sounds similar on the lines you're saying. It's like, you're doing me harm if I have to give additional tax dollars so that you feel comfortable in the school of the country that you came to voluntarily. Most other you're starting to see that in Europe, and guess what? Europe's falling apart. They're losing their own identity because Europe wasn't a melting pot. America was. This was this land that people came to from all over the world. So, but yeah, if you move to Germany from Italy within, I don't know, 2 generations, you're German, right? Or Spain, right? You move to Spain from Germany. Your kids are probably going to marry a Spanish person, and then they're going to start speaking more Spanish. Your grandkids are probably going to speak more Spanish than German, and then your great-grandkids are not going to know any German. So, and are your great-grandkids German or Spanish? Well, they're a little both.
A little bit of both. God knows if I were to have kids with a German woman, how that would turn out. I would probably, just to fuck around with them, you know what? It sounds fucked up, and talking about the whole watch what you say on the internet thing. But I think I would have a little fun with that and be like, "Oh, you kids want to know who your great grandfather was?" And see what the reaction would be when I lie to their face.
All right. Okay, so let's get this wrapped up. My daughter's home, and the noise level's about to jump off the roof here, and I'm using the
Also,
Yeti.
your server goes down when she plays Overwatch.
No, it doesn't. But the dogs have already been barking a couple times. I've been having to mute, and they're all coming back here, and they need to go out.
We've been being. I think I think what's funny. I think this is one of those episodes where we just kept talking, and I don't know if we ever got.
But we've been at this an hour and a half, and Kelly's screaming. That's 3 times she's. All right.
Oh God. Your daughter's a scary girl. Let's just call it. Let's just call it a night before she starts getting on stream and yelling at us.
Yeah. And so anybody, so you got any closing thoughts? I mean, I kind of interrupted you there, but I just kind of wanted to branch off your point there. That's the part of this. We got to do fewer monologues and more dialoguing. Give a couple points and then let someone chime in.
Well, no, I mean, I think we were more in agreement, about everything today. For example, when we got to the Sarah Silverman thing, it really wasn't much like I had much of a disagreement. It was just more trying to prove more there's going to be people out there that are going to defend him regardless of whether he did it or not. Was really the only thing I wanted to add in. But other than that, it's been pretty much all of us kind of acknowledging the same thing. And sometimes when you just happen to be all on the same page, it kind of dulls out the conversation a little bit. Because there's really nothing much more that can be added. So, I mean, these things happen. They're not always going to be the best of shows, but as long as we said something and maybe somebody in the comment section, I don't know, says, good show, guys, or something like that, I think we did our job.
I dropped.
Oh, God, she's on here.
Yeah. She's all upset that we're wrapping up because she wants to play Overwatch and annoy us. Or annoy our listeners. Child of Late. They call her.
School her.
Jeff calls you Child of Late.
They can just call me Cereal.
Shut up, Child of Late. Cereal because of Kellogg's?
Yeah, I call her Kellogg's. Only because she said it one time and I thought that was a cool nickname.
Are you 5'10 or 5'11? In 3/4? Aren't you almost 5'11?
She's 5'11?
I thought she was 5'10 and a half or 5'10 and 3/4 or something. I think she'd be close to 5'11 if she stood up. So when you see her in those, granted we're sitting, but that'll, Now the latest beer review I did that I posted, my son is in the. Did you see him in the post credits?
Yeah, he did not look interested at all.
No, I was just using him for judging if I had the camera wide enough and the focus proper.
Well, the audience doesn't want your. I don't think the audience really noticed. As far as I view it, the best clickbait is the dogs.
Yeah. Well,
So,
Ellie's been barking.
get the dogs
you know,
on the videos.
you know, and they have got to go out. So, and I've got it. It's almost
All
10
right,
o'clock. I'll be
right,
up till
right.
midnight.
You gotta let your dog.
And I got to get up
out.
relatively early tomorrow because I've got a lot of crap to do. But are you done? Or I didn't want to. You know, I want to give you your time.
That was it. Like I said, I know it's one of those episodes. It's just one of those
I know.
episodes.
It's one of those episodes that Kendo's going to be bored to death with, and Jeff will listen to it and say, "You guys had some good points, but you know."
We love you, Jeff. We do.
Well, we're not exciting and dynamic as he is, or he and Dion can be. But hey, that's part of why I miss Kendo on this show, because you know he added a different element and kept us on a straighter path, and but we also used to, you know, tonight's episode we only sort of planned some things out, and Eric, you know, didn't have a whole lot of time, so we had to start a little bit earlier. But maybe next time.
And then Eric kept dying every minute.
Well, and the other thing is, you know, I listen to all this. I mean, WCBS is about the only channel I listen to. I'm not even subscribed to the other two channels, Geeks and Gamers and Ethan. Although their videos come up as a suggestion. That's why I talked about YouTube. I actually unsubscribed last week from like 8 or 9 different channels. Some of which hadn't had videos in 2 or 3 years. I mean, it's like, why am I on this channel? And I start looking at their videos. I'm like, I don't have any idea. But, you know, I subscribed 5 years ago or something. But the ones that I had been actively watching videos, they still come up. I still see them in my suggestions when they have a brand new video. So I'm like, why do I need to subscribe if I'm going to get... And I haven't gotten... I've turned off alerts. I don't know how long ago. I don't get an email when anything is posted. So, I mean, I don't even get emails anymore when people subscribe to my channel or people click like or leave comments or anything else like that. So, because when I turned it off, it was driving me nuts because I was getting so many. And then YouTube did their thing. This was before, maybe it was, who knows, maybe Google was buying them under the covers and hadn't announced it yet. But this was, I guess, 2.5 years ago. And I log in one day and I'm like 400 subscribers fewer. So, and then they had the thing where they were removing videos. And around that same time, I was removing videos, old videos that I didn't need anymore, and people sending me messages, hey, your videos are going. I'm like, yeah, and I did a video saying YouTube is not deleting my videos, which is still up, which I probably ought to take down now. Anyway, as I breathe into my microphone, I've got the gain up too high, I guess. So, all right, let's close this out. So this has been another Friday night. With the gentleman of the Fancaste, and I can do it my best. You see, you guys, you know, for starters, I don't have toe thumbs. They're not toes. They're thumbs. They don't look like toes, and I'm eating a granola bar, not pie. And I can't do his laugh though. You know, wine
Does
from
he do that for real though? Like,
I don't know.
It's like he like that, or is he just playing a part? Because I
don't
could be
know.
convinced it's the former.
I've never met him, and hopefully, you know, it's been like 6 months before we get to the what's it called? Star Wars whatevers. So maybe I'll meet him then. And I'm hoping to get a similar reaction out of him that I got out of Richard Tanner when I met him in Atlanta. He's like, I didn't know you were so tall.
Yeah, you really are. And once you told me your daughter was 5'11", I'm like, damn, he's actually taller than I am.
Yeah, and well, Zach is 6 feet 6'1". He's several inches taller than Kelly is. Yeah, I think Kelly's like 5'10 and a half, 5'10 and 3/4, something like that when she stands up straight. And then this is only going to go. So I have been, like I said, I said 10 minutes ago, we got to hang it up, and it's only going to get worse, and it is.
All right. The dog's at their point.
I have been your host, Brainmuffin, the lifting nerd, and the remaining voice, Lagomel Pro.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, tonight's episode has been brought to you by the letter X and by the number 69. Good night.
Alvider, bye-bye.
SOBs.